Scientists from the University of Michigan have developed an innovative way to use NASA satellite data to track the movement of tiny pieces of plastic in the ocean. Microplastics form when plastic trash in the ocean breaks down from the sun's rays and the motion of ocean waves. These small flecks of plastic are harmful to marine organisms and ecosystems. Microplastics can be carried hundreds or thousands of miles away from the source by ocean currents, making it difficult to track and remove them. Currently, the main source of information about the location of microplastics comes from fisher boat trawlers that use nets to catch plankton and unintentionally microplastics. An estimated 8 million tons of plastic trash enters the ocean each year, and most of it is battered by sun and waves into microplastics. Now, University of Michigan researchers have developed a new way to spot ocean microplastics across the globe and track them over time, providing a day-by-day timeline of where they enter the water, how they move, and where they tend to collect. The approach relies on the Cyclone Global Navigation Satellite System (CYGNSS) and can give a global view or zoom in on small areas for a high-resolution picture of microplastic releases from a single location. The technique is a major improvement over current tracking methods, which rely mainly on spotty reports from plankton trawlers that net microplastics along with their catch. The team found that global microplastic concentrations tend to vary by season, peaking in the North Atlantic and Pacific during the Northern Hemisphere summer months. June and July, for example, are the peak months for the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, a convergence zone in the North Pacific Ocean where microplastic collect in massive quantities. Concentrations in the Southern Hemisphere reach their peak during its summer months of January and February. Concentrations tend to be lower during the winter months, likely due to a combination of stronger currents that break up microplastic plumes and increased vertical mixing that drives them further beneath the water surface. The data also showed several brief spikes in microplastic concentration at the mouth of the Yangtze River, long suspected to be a chief source. The researchers produced visualizations that show microplastic concentrations around the globe. Often the areas of accumulation are due to prevailing local water currents and convergence zones, with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch being the most extreme example. The information could help organizations that clean up microplastics deploy ships and other resources more efficiently. The researchers are already in talks with the Dutch cleanup organization, the Ocean Cleanup, on working together to validate the team's initial findings. Single point release data may also be useful to United Nations agency UNESCO, which has sponsored a task force to find new ways to track the release of microplastics into the world's waters. This tracking method uses existing data from CYGNSS, a system of 8 microsatellites launched in 2016 to monitor weather near the heart of large storm systems and bolster predictions on their severity. The key to the process is ocean surface roughness, which CYGNSS already measures using radar. The measurements have mainly been used to calculate wind speed near the eyes of hurricanes, but the researcher wondered whether they might have other uses as well. The researcher says that they had been taking these radar measurements of surface roughness and using them to measure wind speed, and they knew that the presence of stuff in the water alters its responsiveness to the environment. So they got the idea of doing the whole thing backward, using changes in responsiveness to predict the presence of stuff in the water. Using independent wind speed measurements from NOAA, the team looked for places where the ocean seemed less rough than it should be given the wind speed. They then matched those areas up with actual observations from plankton trawlers and ocean current models that predict the migration of microplastic. They found a high correlation between the smoother areas and those with more microplastic. The research team believes the changes in ocean roughness may not be caused directly by the microplastics themselves, but instead by surfactants, a family of oily or soapy compounds that lower the surface tension on a liquid surface. Surfactants tend to accompany microplastics in the ocean, both because they are often released along with microplastics and because they travel and collect in similar ways once they are in the water. Areas of high microplastic concentration, like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, exist because they are located in convergence zones of ocean currents and eddies. The microplastics get transported by the motion of the water and end up collecting in one place. Surfactants behave in a similar way, and it is very likely that they are acting as sort of a tracer for the microplastics. The research team is currently testing this hypothesis, working to conduct experiments in a wave generating tank in the Aaron Friedman Marine Hydrodynamics Lab. The researchers say that they can see the relationship between surface roughness and the presence of microplastics and surfactants. So the goal now is to understand the precise relationship between the three variables as well as the reasons behind them. The wave tank and its ultrasonic sensors enable them to focus on those relationships by taking measurements under very precisely monitored wave, surfactant and microplastic conditions. A paper on the work is published in the journal IEEE Transactions on Geoscience and Remote Sensing.